Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. Today I have a very quick idea for you on creating some of your own embellishments for your paper crafting projects. The reason behind this video is that in my last episode I created a scrapbook kit, and you can see the papers and embellishments here, and that was based on this inspiration piece. And so I created some of my own embellishments based on these little pennant banners with words on them, as well as these little chipboard embellishments with kind of these seaside themes and this flamingo. So let me go ahead and show you what I did. So this isn't a full technique video, but rather just an idea share to help get some ideas flowing for you. So I pulled out a bunch of supplies, including scraps of pattern paper that matched the papers that I put together for my kit, as well as a whole bunch of stamps and some punches. So I chose images and words for my stamps so that I could mix and match a variety of these little embellishments. Here I cut some rectangles out of one of each of those colored pattern paper scraps that I pulled from my stash, and I'm going to turn these into pennants. So when I have this rectangle, I will on one end mark the center point, and then on my trimmer from a back corner to that center point, I will slice it off, and then you rotate it and do the same thing from the other corner to that center point, and then you have some pennants. I made these large enough to fit this word adventure from one of my stamp sets on here. And so that is the start of the embellishment. I wanted to spruce it up just a bit more. I use this Quickie glue pen, and I really recommend these glue pens for this kind of thing. I've had this glue pen for years and years, and it has never dried up on me despite only using it occasionally like this. But anything that is sticky will hold embossing powder. So I stamped my words with an embossing ink, and here I am. I just drew a border edge to my pennant with that glue pen. And then when you put the powder on top of those things and heat set it, then you've got these lovely heat embossed embellishments that you can create with any words, any images, and any colors you want to fit your paper crafting project. Now, I didn't do my heat embossing very carefully, and so I did have some overflow of that embossing powder. Here I'm just using a craft knife to scrape away those extra flecks of embossing powder. And even if you have, like when you're drawing with the Quickie glue pen and say your line gets a little squiggly, you can use that craft knife to kind of slice a straighter line through the embossing powder and then scrape away the edge of the squiggle, and that will create straighter lines. And if you want to prevent this problem from happening in the first place instead of trying to fix it after the fact, you should use a heat embossing powder tool, and this is just filled with like a cornstarch type product, and that removes any stickiness to the paper from like oily fingerprints or excess inks or glues that could be on there, and that will give you a much more finished result. So that's the basic idea. So let's just look at a few variations on this project. So of course, this is what we started with, which was some stamped words and some hand-doodled borders. Then we saw a slightly different pennant shape, more of a triangle shape, also with stamped words and doodled corners. Next, I created a whole bunch of little labels with a label stamp set and die set, although I ended up hand cutting these out. And it's nice to be able to just do a big batch of these and have them in lots of shapes, sizes, and multiple colors. And if you want to spruce those up a bit more, you can certainly stamp words or icons into those. If you look closely at this clip, you can see that I stamped and embossed words into each of those little labels. Next up were my icons in a mock chipboard style, and when I heat embossed all these images, I did huge batches. So I would stamp all of the seashells on all of the colors of paper, all of the birds, the flip-flops on all of the colors of the paper, and then I would powder everything, and then I would heat everything. You just have to be careful not to bump any of that stuff while you're working, because that can smudge your images, but other than that, it should speed up your process quite a bit. And then once you have your images, you can punch them out with a shape of punch that you like and make sure your punch fits the whole image on there, or you can do partial images as well, which we'll get to in a minute. And then you can punch excess pieces with the same punch and layer them up with glue them together, and that creates the thickness and the appearance of chipboard, and you get exactly the color and icon that you want. Earlier, I mentioned flamingos, and I created these pieces off camera. The only difference was I punched the shape first, and then I lined up my stamp to get a partial image of that flamingo onto the circle right where I wanted it to be. And that's because the flamingo was quite large and too large for any of these punches. And it actually makes a better chipboard style embellishment at this size than it would at full size. So that almost wraps up this video. I did want to mention one additional item that I didn't have a chance to do or film for this video, but I have done it in the past, and that is if you want to get more of that puffy sticker look as opposed to the chipboard look, you can use a clear glossy product over the top of these to create more of that puffy sticker thickness, texture, gloss, and that increases the variety of your projects as well. So that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. If you got something helpful out of this video, I would love it if you could give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I would be thrilled if you would consider subscribing. I will be back later next week with another embellishing technique for you involving foiling. And after that, I will have a layout process video. So I hope you will join me next week for those. Until then, have an artful day.